Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored today to be joined by Jake Rogal, the director of some of my favorite shows. Obviously, you guys have all seen The Last Dance. If you listen to this podcast, you obviously know BJ and the Bulls and all of that kind of stuff. But more recently, I've been locked into Court of Gold on Netflix, which, it dropped over the break after All-Star Weekend, which was perfect because it filled the void for no basketball being on. But if you haven't seen it yet, you need to check it out. But Jake Rogal, welcome to the show. How you doing, my man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for that intro. It makes me feel good and warms me up. So I appreciate all the kind words.
Hey man, you deserve the flowers, because there's a lot of basketball documentaries being made recently.
Mhm.
But The Last Dance for me is obviously the best documentary I think of all time. Obviously, a
Yeah.
big part of that as well is like Michael Jordan, the Chicago Bulls. That's just the best story that you can have the chance to tell, right? But this one that you made was kind of a different it's kind of a different style, right? Because there are so many storylines being covered because you covered the Team USA, Serbia,
Mhm.
France, all the other countries that are going around. What point was this documentary kind of conceived? Was it after all the stars had decided that they were going to be competing in the Olympics, or was this even before that you guys decided you wanted to start this project?
It was before all that. So I work at a company called Words and Pictures, and the CEO is Connor Shell. And Connor used to be the head of ESPN. He worked on The Last Dance. He was working with all of the different groups, the federations, the IOC, the NBA, to get this thing in place. And so when I joined the company, this was already rolling, and he was already behind the scenes making all of these deals and trying to figure out how to make this work. And so I'm not sure whose idea it was. I just know that Connor did the heavy lifting in putting this together, and getting it off the ground. So I came in sort of mid mix, and when he said, "Hey, there's a basketball show that we're working on. I think it'd be cool, and I think you might be into it." And as soon as he told me the concept, I was sold pretty instantly, and everything just kind of unfolded from there.
Man, I mean, how did you feel? Because I'm assuming that you're a big basketball fan, or it's hard not to be a big basketball fan when you're dealing with stars of this magnitude. But how did you feel when you saw LeBron and Steph and KD put their names forward and say that they're going to be playing this Olympics, knowing that you're going to have the chance to document what they're doing?
Yeah, I am a huge basketball fan, so it was a mix of that is amazing and what a cool opportunity, and sort of a pit in your stomach, like, oh my God, I hope that they want to be part of this, and I hope that we can film with them, and I hope it works out for them, and I hope that people don't get hurt. And it's like it's a whole, mix and collage of feelings that you have. I think it's excitement mixed with like a bit of nerves, when you're dealing with guys like that. I mean, they're brands, they're global superstars, and you're just like, man, I hope that the show does justice to kind of their experience.
Were you on the ground then at the Olympics in Paris and Lille where the games were taking place? And how did you balance your time around, every team, every player? Because there's so much going on.
Yeah, I was there for 3 weeks, the week before the Olympics, and then through the whole tournament. We had field teams in place for each team. So every day, one of our teams was assigned to one of the national teams that we were following. So they developed rapport there. So I could trust all of our producers, who were amazing, and their teams in getting the stories that we talked about. And then from there, I would just bounce around to whatever the most challenging shoot was of that day. But I had to kind of walk a line because like those field teams developed such a rapport. Max Gershberg, Angela Evans, who were amazing, Nick Manning. We had all these awesome producers who were with these guys. And me coming in as a stranger, you don't want to like interfere with that. So you really had to be kind of selective in where you went. But we were able to kind of make sure we had one team with each team covering everything that we needed, and then I would just bounce around to whatever was needed.
I don't want to give too much away because I want the fans who are listening to actually go and watch the documentary and enjoy the entire thing. But a question I have for you is, with so much going on and so many of the players having unique stories and unique angles, what's something that you wish that you could have included, but maybe you just didn't get the time in one of the episodes to include, or, something that had to be cut, but you wish that people got an insight to see?
Yeah. We only shot from June of 24 to December of 24. So we had a lot of footage, but like compared to some of these other docs we've worked on, when you work for 2 years on something, there's a lot more footage to kind of decide what to use and what not. This one, the best moments showed themselves pretty obviously, and we were able to incorporate. I feel confident we incorporated the best stuff. But there's two things that come to mind. One is we shot a qualifying tournament, and Greece won it. And so we were in the locker room with Giannis and some of his teammates celebrating that they had made it to the Olympics, and that was cool. And seeing a superstar being proud of his country and getting to the Olympics is awesome. And so we had that in the cut at one point. We realized in episode 1 you want to get to the Olympics, so we couldn't include it. And then the other thing was the Obama scene that's in there with Ant and President Obama. We actually shot a dinner that the president had with the team right after that. There's some really cool moments from the dinner, and we just never quite figured out a way to incorporate it. But other than those two moments, I feel like we got the stuff in that we wanted to get in, just because it was the tournament naturally unfolding, and we just showed kind of everything that happened.
Absolutely. That dinner with Obama is pretty iconic. So I've had so many people come up to me because, people see me, they always want to come and talk about basketball, but even non-basketball fans have seen clips of the documentary, in particular the Obama interaction with Anthony Edwards. People come and ask me about Anthony Edwards now. They're like, oh, it's the guy who was kind of talking trash in front of Obama. Will we
Yeah.
ever see any of the unreleased footage as kind of like a bonus special or anything like that?
Not my call. I don't own the footage. I don't know. It's archived, and there's a million different people who own parts of it, and there's different contracts in place, and so I don't know. Hopefully, it'd be cool, but it's not my call.
One of my favorite parts of the documentary is it really expresses the emotion and the love for the game that Kevin Durant has. If anyone ever wants to question anything about Kevin Durant, you could question his decision to play for whatever team, but one thing you can't question is how much the game of basketball means to him. And the way
Yeah.
you guys got that across in this documentary, because we're in an era of people saying, the players don't really care, this, and that about the NBA. But the way that you guys were able to convey that emotion from Kevin, that was probably my favorite part of the entire thing. When you're in those situations with these athletes, is it a case of you're just putting them in front of the camera and letting them talk, or are you kind of prompting them along with questions? And do you go into that with a preconceived list of topics you want to talk about, or do you just kind of let it flow?
I think it's different for every interview. For Kevin in particular, we went in with a set of questions, not knowing he would get emotional. That was not an emotional question we asked him at that time. He took it to an emotional place. Um, the Olympics are ripe with emotion because it's country and people are doing it on their own time. So you kind of have like that environment where emotion is sort of in everyone's throat. And then if you get into the right topic or the right conversation, it can go into a really emotional place. We were talking about Twitter, and he took it there because he was talking about how he's misunderstood. And I think in that moment it just hit him. And so there are times where there's going to be emotion in an interview and you're talking about a really tough and difficult topic. But for that one, it was a lot about, reflection on the Olympics and what he did in Paris and what he expects in going to the gold medal game and all that stuff. So I think it kind of came out of nowhere. But then when it happens, what you want to do is you want to create an environment where they're comfortable. So it's like there's two things. One is for the show, and one is you as like a human being. If your friend's crying in front of you, your first reaction is, I want to make sure they're okay, like comfortable.
Yeah.
And so you create a comfortable environment, and then you're thinking, okay, now for the show, I need to get X, Y, and Z out of this moment. So it really is just like a case by case basis with these interviews.
As a broadcaster, you know, um, it's very difficult. And I think one of the hardest parts of the job is, for example, when I was covering the 2022 NBA Finals, when Steph Curry is doing the Steph Curry thing of taking over a game and raining down threes, the inner fan wants to just be amazed at what Steph's doing, but you're there working your job. So you have to remain focused on the goal at hand and what you have to do. For me, that's doing a broadcast. For you, when all of these crazy things are happening on the court, because I think that is one of the best Olympic performances we've ever seen, where he took over the game down a stretch against France, hitting the step back three, the three over Wemby, so on and so forth. How do you view that while it's unfolding? Are you enjoying that moment as a fan, or are you in your head thinking, okay, cool, I'm going to need this shot from this angle, and we're going to need this music playing while it's going on live and direct? How do you kind of balance those two things?
It's the hardest part of the job because I am a huge sports fan. So I let myself feel it. If there's a cool thing happening, and I'm still able to I can let my brains work in two ways, which is Steph's hitting these shots. Okay, how are we covering it? But at the same time, like Steph's hitting these shots. This is awesome. I'm so grateful to be here. So like, I don't think you should fight that feeling. I think it's like, let yourself feel that. It's cool. It's like you don't get that. And so I don't want to like neglect my feelings in a moment. If I'm like feeling it and I'm like, this is so awesome. I take a second and pause and like watch it for a minute. And then I'll be like, okay, let's make sure, what are we doing to cover this? But I also think keeping it small, like if you're thinking about the music at that time or you're thinking about the edit at that time, you can spiral. So it's like, where's our camera and where is it pointed? Is a very easy thing to figure out. And like, if you can start there and then be like, what's the next problem? It's easier to just compartmentalize something that's huge. But I think letting yourself feel something as a fan is like an essential part of life. And I let myself feel cool, feel the coolness and be starstruck and all that. I like that stuff.
A lot of people expected it to be a cakewalk for Team USA. And, teams like France and teams like Serbia showed that it wasn't as easy as a lot of people had expected. If the USA hadn't won this tournament, would the documentary still have come out? Or was this in partnership with USA Basketball and kind of part of, this brand that the US team has as the dominant force in world basketball?
Yeah, it would have still come out. USA basketball was a part of this, and we did it with them. But there was nothing in place that said if they lose, it doesn't come out. We actually debated for a long time what's the best outcome for the show, because the thesis of the show is the world has caught up. So if you put that out there for the audience, you need to prove that. And if the U.S. rolled by 40 every game, it wouldn't the sort of guts of the show wouldn't hold. So you were hoping for some, not necessarily a loss, but you wanted it to be competitive. And so I still don't know what the best outcome for the show is. I think what happened ultimately was, because you had such a dramatic finish with the team that, with all eyes on them. But no, there was nothing in place that said if they lost, it wouldn't come out. We would have aired the show and we would have showed it accurately. And I think from the get-go, everyone involved just wanted it to be authentic, no matter what happened. And then that was always what the sort of marching order was be authentic, show it how it happened, and then just let the chips fall as they might.
The very end, everyone knows how the Olympics turned out, so it's not a spoiler in that sense. But the one shot you had of Victor Wembanyama crying, embracing his mother, how emotional that was. I've been watching Victor Wembanyama since he was 14 years old over here in Europe. I know a little bit about Victor Wembanyama. That man is coming for revenge. So my question to you, Jake, is there going to be a Court of Gold 2 at the next Olympics?
It's not my call. That's all the people above me who make that decision. I think that when you have a sport that's this global and people are that into it, any sort of ancillary programming surrounding it that lets you on the inside is good for the game. It's good for the Olympics. It's good for the people and parties involved. So, I think it's a great idea. It's not my decision, but if it was, I think it's a great idea, and it helps the sport in a time when the sport just needs a little nudge. Like, people
Hmm.
love basketball all over the world. And I think right now people are thinking that like basketball needs help. I don't think it does. I think it's global and people love basketball and they always will. And everyone plays it every day all over the place. So I think it's a sport ripe for programming all over the world and docs like this to be a part of it.
Absolutely. I think I speak on behalf of all basketball fans in the world that we want to see a part two at the LA Olympics. And, especially now in a world where you're competing on Netflix with so many great documentaries, like one of my favorites outside of basketball is the Six Nations one that they have. You've got the Formula One, you've got the tennis and the golf and everything going on. So it's nice for the NBA to be in that space. They had the starting five as well, but this is a completely different angle. But whilst we have you here, as you're a big basketball fan, I feel like we have to let the people know who is your team that you root for.
I grew up in Pittsburgh, so I didn't
Hmm.
have a basketball team. And the NBA is weird for me because I still don't have a team. I watch as many games as fans do because I like the sport. And what that does, it opens me up to, like, I watched the Magic Cavs game last night.
Yep.
I'm not a fan of those teams, and I think people who are fans of certain teams might not have watched that game, but I think I get like pretty good perspective on the league itself because I tune into just games and I don't have a team that I follow. So I might not know as much as a fan about a singular team, but I can like see this league on a sort of higher level is like just looking at it from above. Because I'm following every team. So I don't have a team. I grew up, I like the Bulls like everybody else. I really like Kevin Garnett. He was somebody I loved. I had a friend who was a Lakers fan and he was obnoxious, so I used to root for the Trailblazers and all those matchups. The Kings, with like Mike Bibby
Yeah.
and all those guys. But yeah, no, I don't have a team. I just like the sport. I think basketball is incredible, and it's
Yeah.
it's easy to get behind.
Now we have Scott Perry on the show every Monday, and he's a huge Steelers fan. So I know as a Pittsburgh guy,
Oh,
that's all
nice, but
you.
yeah,
But
Steelers. That's my Steelers and Penguins are my teams.
yes, sir. But the question is now, from an unbiased perspective, championship prediction: which two teams are going to be in the finals, and who gets the win?
I'll go Celtics, and I mean it'd be easy to say the Thunder, but I want to say because this is what I'm hoping for. I'll go Warriors, Celtics, and I'll go Celtics.
Okay. I hope so. I'm a Celtics fan, so I'm hoping you're right and we can get
Yeah.
revenge for 2022. But Jake, I appreciate your time. If you guys at home haven't yet seen Court of Gold on Netflix, I urge you all to tune in because it is my favorite show that I've watched this year so far. And
Thanks.
like I said, we're all hoping for more documentaries and LA 2028. I think it will be a good one. So if your bosses are listening to this interview, I hope you guys take the hint. But yeah, Jake, what's next for you? What are you working on next? Where can people check out more of your stuff?
Good question. I don't know yet. I have a baby being born in 2 weeks. So
Congratulations.
thanks, man.
Congratulations.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm going to be a dad for a little bit and then kind of see where things take me. So hopefully in sports, I want to stay working in sports and see what opportunities are out there.
Well, fingers crossed, we're all going to be here with the popcorn ready to watch whatever you create next. And best of luck in this journey of fatherhood as well. Blessings to you and your family. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Tell BJ I said what's up.
Most definitely will do.
All right, cool. See you, man.